Hello and welcome to another episode of Book Journey Mentor Uncut. Very excited about this broadcast, but if you are watching for the first time, my name is Danni Blechner, author, Book Journey Mentor, founder of a company called Conscious Dreams Publishing. We work with authors from all over the world to help them to get their powerful messages and stories out there in the form of professional books. Over the last 4 years, we have published over 88 books. I've mentored over 190 authors and aspiring authors, assisting them in developing their skill set in not just publishing and writing, but also social media, branding, public speaking, and most importantly, confidence. I'm absolutely passionate at providing a platform for unseen, unheard voices so that they can educate, inspire, and empower for generations to come. Whether it's whether it's entrepreneurs, change makers, people with amazing life stories, people who write poetry, to the young 13-year-old girl who wrote an 84,000 word sci-fi novel. We want to hear from you. We are passionate about providing a platform for these voices to make a difference. So for those of you who tuned in last week, thank you so much and also celebrating Rio Merricks's launch of her book When in the Wilderness. If you want to watch her book launch, you can hop over to her Instagram page. Not now, do it later on, do it after this, at Rio Merrick's absolutely amazing book launch she had on Monday. So those of you who are watching the show for the first time, please tap the screen, say hello, show us some love, let us know where you are watching from, and make sure you leave the comments in the bottom. Okay, hello Yeshiva, nice to see you. So this is broadcasting live on YouTube. If you're watching via YouTube, hello, on Facebook, on my Facebook page, and in my Facebook group as well. So please do invite your followers, share this out, because this is going to be a fantastic one. So what is this show all about? It's called Book Journey Mentor Uncut. It's a show that provides a platform for not just new and up-and-coming and unseen, unheard authors, but also established authors. It's also a platform where I interview experts within the industry, so whether that's other publishers, because there are many different ways to publish, editors, typesetters, illustrators, book marketers, PR experts, all different people, because putting a book together is not just about the printing of the book. There are so many different elements, and the aim of this show really is to really help you to get an insight into what it really takes to publish a book. So my guest, without any further ado, is an amazing woman called Julia Lynch, founder of too many G's, Global Girl Project. Her book, their book, More Than One Voice, Changing Our World Starts with a Girl, comes out on the International Day of the Girl, which is the 11th of October, so it'll make that day. It is free, it is ready for pre-order now. It's an amazing collection of stories written by 8 girls that Global Girl Project work with from developing countries, and they are absolute testament to just how they can become leaders within their community. But I'm going to bring on Julia, who's going to explain a little bit more, so please do show us some love. Okay, no worries, Yeshiva. See you on the replay. Okay.
Hi, Danni.
Good evening. How are you doing, Julia?
Hi, I'm great. I'm good. How are you doing?
Excellent. I'm good, thank you. I'm good. Congratulations on it's not out yet, but it's all ready for pre-order on More Than One Voice. How did you feel? How did you feel when you received this proof copy?
It was a lot like Christmas. It was really, I was super, super excited. I had it posted to one of my board members' houses, and I kept bothering her, say, "Is it arrived yet? Has it arrived yet?" And we met up in a parking lot like it was like a secret special thing, which it is, and super excited to be able to pull out our proof copy. So yeah,
amazing. And look at that cover, isn't it absolutely beautiful?
Oh, I know. Our designer and our illustrator just did an absolutely fantabulous job of the cover.
So big up Paloma.
Yeah.
So just want to sort of crack into you a little bit, because obviously I came across you first on one of my other authors' platforms, and I was so intrigued and amazed by the work that you're doing in terms of Global Girl Project. But just crack into you how you got to that stage first. So you're from Canada. Tell us what was it like growing up in Canada?
I mean, Canada is obviously a huge country.
Yeah.
I'm from a small town. Well, it's not small anymore, but a small town in Ontario, so in the province of Ontario. My family, my mom is English, so I feel quite British, actually, even though it sound like this. And my father was Jamaican, so and so they immigrated to Canada, and that's where I grew up. And it's good. Canada's an amazing country, it's an amazing country, but it's the 70s and the 80s, and growing up as a mixed race girl in a small white town definitely had its experiences, and I think was probably, those experiences were a lot of what obviously has made me who I am today. But as somebody who's really interested in what happens when people from different cultures and different religions and different parts of the world come together and spend time together and recognize their similarities. And I kind of, looking back, I think probably life there was a lot of what brought me to eventually start Global Girl Project many years ago. But Toronto. I lived in Toronto for a while. Went to school, social work. Got my degree in social work. It's a great place to live. A little cold for me. So
Couple colder than Britain, no?
A little cold. I eventually left, and I actually moved to LA to get away from the cold for a bit. But it was a good life, and I worked there for many years as a social worker, a community worker, family therapist. Had a good time, and then it was time to move on to my next adventure. So
yes, yeah. You definitely sounds like you've had some adventures. I think definitely being of dual heritage myself, I can relate to a lot of what you're saying. This sort of cultural sensitivity and having this dual consciousness of having so many different types of people in one space at one time. So you're saying that in hindsight, that kind of maybe stood you in good stead to actually setting up Global Girl Project. Can you tell us, first of all, what is Global Girl Project for those who don't know, and what was it that what was that last kind of tick in your mind that made you say, right, I've got to set this up?
I wish it was like one. Well, okay, I'll start somewhere from the beginning. Global Girl Project, which I guess it is hard to say. I haven't really thought of it that way, but I guess
it's really global. British, I struggle.
Right. We are now an international NGO, so an international organization that does leadership training with disadvantaged girls who live in developing countries. So all of our focus is around the mobilization of girls who would not otherwise have the opportunity to learn about leadership, to go through training and experiences that will show them their power as young women, as girls, and then give them the tools to use that power to create the change that they want to see in their community. So using their power for good. To support others and bring other people up and be role models in their communities and be leaders. And so we run a few different programs. We run an exchange program, which obviously, because of COVID, we had to postpone, unfortunately, but that's a one-of-a-kind program that brings girls from different parts of the developing world to Nepal for a 5-week leadership training. And first time they left home. It's the first time they've certainly never heard of Nepal before.
Wow.
And it's quite a transformative experience. We use travel and cross-cultural exposure and just being really, really uncomfortable and scared as a way to ignite change in our girls. And each girl then goes home and runs her own project, which is part of what, when we talk about the book, you'll see is that each of our authors went through this program and different iterations of it. And so the idea of that program is to take our girls from often shy, unsure girls into girls who recognize their power and their agency, and then take action to do something with that. And so each girl in our program creates her own initiative, addressing an issue of their choosing in their community, and then they run their own mini Global Girl Project, which is really
amazing.
Cool. And then we have a new program. Thankfully, just before COVID hit, we piloted a new program called the Blended Learning Leadership Initiative. And that program takes the same leadership curriculum and we run it locally in our partner countries. So we're running it in Afghanistan, Jordan, South Africa, Nigeria, and Haiti right now. And that does the same thing, but with groups of 10 girls at a time, and they run their own event. So the girls end up, and they all live in places where it's fairly unusual for you to see, one girl or a group of girls actually running their own initiative or their own event. And then each girl receives a grant that goes towards her school fees once she successfully graduates from the program.
That is absolutely amazing. What I love about it is that it's not a kind of one stop, this is what we're going to do. Everything leads on to something else. So they become leaders in their own community, so they're empowered within their own community, and then they go on to, you sponsor them to go into school. That's absolutely fantastic. And what was that about? What was that final spark in your mind that made you say, right, I'm going to go? Was there something that you thought about for a long time, or did you see something and you thought, right, I'm going to do this now?
Yeah, there's different stories, but the initial spark, quite honestly, was I had gone for a reading, and if this is, believing in it or not, it's up to you. But I had gone for a reading with a woman who had a number of readings with, and I sat down with her, and everything she'd always said to me had always come into fruition. And she said, as soon as I sat down, she said, "What project are you sitting on and doing absolutely nothing about?" And I was like, I hadn't seen this woman in like 10 years. And I was like, what? And I had been thinking about Global Girl Project, and it was, it was a very different, beast than it certainly is now. And that was really kind of all I needed to at least give me permission to start the journey. And she even talked about eventually we'd be working in the Middle East, which at that time, as you can imagine, I was living in LA, and I was like, okay, all right, whatever. And we're now in Afghanistan, and it's interesting. And then I think as I was approaching my 40th birthday, I believe, and I have been a social worker for many years in the UK and Canada, the US. I've always worked with young people. And I wanted to, I'd also traveled a lot within the developing world and done a lot of volunteer work. And I wanted to bring those two sides of myself together. And I saw a gap. I'm somebody who likes to do things that nobody else is doing. Yeah. And sometimes that can be really frustrating to those around me, but for me, that's who I am,
Right. I love it.
Right. So I just saw that it was a huge gap that there wasn't this sort of offering available to specifically girls who are disadvantaged in developing countries. So we're not talking about, a middle-class girl in India. We're talking about girls who are living, in the slums of Mumbai. Right. So I didn't see that being available at the time. And I also didn't see there being a global international aspect to it. And so that was the beginning. And then I think in hindsight, I also I didn't grow up in a way that I was taught that I had power as a girl. I grew up with a Jamaican father who, didn't recognize that or celebrate that, and no, it's that's just the way it is, right? And I think that's a lot of different reasons around that, and obviously gender equality and gender roles is a big part of that. And so in hindsight, I wanted to spend my life working with girls, showing them that they do have power, not in spite of being a girl, but because they are girls. And that they can use that power to create change, and that they need to, that is their responsibility as global citizens, is to be of service to others and help to create the change that they want to see.
Amazing. Thank you so much. If you have just tuned in, you are watching Book Journey Mentor Uncut. My name is Daniela Blechner, author, Book Journey Mentor, founder of Conscious Dreams Publishing, interviewing the awesome and amazing Julia Lynch, founder of Global Girl Project. Look at this beautiful book, More Than One Voice, Changing Our World Starts With a Girl, comes out on the 11th of October, but it is available for pre-order now. We'll put all the links in the comments. This is written, these are 8 authentic stories written by 8 of the girls who have been part or who are part of the Global Girl Initiative from all different corners of the world, from developing countries, for the first time really having their voices heard and out there in print. It's so exciting. I've never met. I just feel so excited for them. So I mean, how do you, please do share this out, and please do let people know about the Global Girl Project as well. We'll speak a bit later about how you can get involved and assist the organization. But how do you find these girls, and how have they reacted to, if they've seen it, to the book?
Well, I mean, firstly, the girls. So the girls, we work in partnership. So we partner with amazing organizations within the countries that we work in who are doing great work with young people already. And we are simply adding to their programming, right? So we're just adding another aspect to their programming. And that's what is most important to us, is our partnerships. And so, you know, we form those partnerships with well-established, respected organizations. And then they put forth girls that we will then, for the exchange program, we interview them and we select the girls. And for the blended learning, they are selected by our partners. And so, you know, they are all, you know, the book came to fruition because they all have amazing stories. You know, they all, in the time that I got to know them, and because we are a grassroots organization, I know all of the girls. I've worked with all the girls. And so, you know, over time, I would hear their stories and just be like, somebody else needs to hear these stories besides me, because these are really, you know, inspiring stories. And so they haven't seen the book yet. They don't have the book yet.
Have they seen the cover?
They've seen the cover, and I've sent them their illustrations, right? We have an amazing illustrator, Paloma, who first time illustrating for a book, and she did all of the illustrations. And so, yeah, so that's one of our, we have changed the names of the girls just because these are all teenager or, you know, early 20s girls.
Yeah.
Paloma from Spain, who did all of these amazing illustrations.
Beautiful.
So they've seen their illustrations. I would send them as they were getting done and saying, hey, here's you. And they've seen the posts on social media. So they're super excited. I don't think they fully understand what's going on until, you know, I have to get the book to each of them, which will be a feat in itself. But they're so excited. And honestly, they're just, it's different than if the girls were from the West. I have to say, like, they're just really thankful. They're just like, you know, and they always put it back on me, which is, it's not about me, right? I mean, I'm not the author, they're the authors, but they're always so thankful, and they're just so, they all call me mom. So they're like, you know, they just, you know, and none of them are writers. None of them knew how to tell their stories, you know, so we work with another amazing volunteer named Max, who helped them to like tell their stories, make it into stories. And so, yeah, they're going to be pretty blown away. And it's important to say that all of, you know, 100% of the profits for this book go back to our 8 authors and our programming. So the idea of this has always been to create some economic independence for our girls. Because they all live in difficult situations. And so we part of being a leader and being independent is you have to be able to take care of yourself. And so all of the profits go back to the girls and to Global Girl Project, so you can continue to work with more girls, basically.
Amazing. It all goes full circle.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And our girls are excited that they can be a part of giving back to Global Girl. Right?
Because exactly. It links in with their leadership. They've been part of creating something. It's funny in a way that all their books are in one story, but in my mind, I keep thinking they must know each other, but obviously they've never met each other, have they?
Some of them know each other. So the 8 girls are from the very, Ani is our first girl that I ever was like, hey, let's try this and see if it works. She's from Brazil. And to our most recent, there's a couple of the girls who are from our most recent group, Smriti and Jaya are from our most recent group. And then all the other ones are from all the years in between. So most of them don't know each other, no. Lucy and Izata know, no, Lucy knows Jaya and Smriti. It's
you're gonna have to do a massive Zoom party or something.
Yeah, and this is the thing too, is most of them live in places where they either have no internet, or they have just such terrible internet that we can't even get them, live anywhere. Which is,
no!
I know, and that's the whole journey of the book. I mean, I write about this in the introduction, but the stories came to us in very unconventional ways, right? I mean, obviously, first of all, not all of our girls speak English very well, so the stories came to us in Urdu and in Portuguese and in Haitian Creole and in Nepali, and then we had to translate them into English. But also the girls, as I said, not all of them have phones or internet. So the ways we got the stories were quite interesting. So
this is a journey in itself. And also a lot of the titles here are written in their native language. Is this Hindi? This is Hindi, isn't it?
That's Nepali.
Nepali. Okay. And I love that. I also love the design as well. How important then was it for you to ensure that their authentic voice was kept?
I mean, it was the most important thing, because, as I said, this isn't my story. These are their stories, and so we have we had a team of volunteers. So this came together through COVID, right? This was because of COVID that this book came into fruition. And so when I brought the team of volunteers together, which I'll talk about each of them after, but the main thing that we talked about when we started the editing was like, how do we keep their voices while still making the stories palatable to the English native English speaker and reader? And it was very challenging. Like, it was really, and we edited and edited and edited and edited, because if the story came to us it was Haitian Creole, and then it was translated by one of my partners who isn't a translator. She just speaks both languages. So the translation necessarily like as a translator would do. And then we had to move things around so it was an actual like story, and then still keep the fact that it was, how she would speak, right? And so it was very difficult, but it was like the most important element for us, to be honest with you. I didn't want any of the girls to read the story and be like, I wouldn't say that. Yeah. And also, we want this book to eventually be in the hands of girls and boys in India and in Sierra Leone and Cameroon and Nepal. And so it has to be authentic, right? It can't be like I wrote it.
Yeah, exactly. We're definitely on the same hymn sheet, because I think it's so important to make sure that the voices are kept as they are. And we're very much about offering a platform for unseen, unheard voices, so they can be shared. Quite often, I feel that stories are told on behalf of people, by people who don't necessarily know the culture or the language. It's their own interpretation. So this is just really refreshing, because it is directly from these girls. And like you said, when they take this back as leaders to other people in their respective places, other people can read this and actually see themselves, but also hear themselves as well. So I think, like you said,
I think also learning about that culture, like, say, for instance, with one of the stories that was from one of our girls in Nepal, when she's talking, at one point she says something happened in some time. And I remember one of the editors saying, okay, but like, when was this? Or like, how long did it take? And I was like, no, we can't change that, because that's very Nepali, right? That's very Nepali. If you say, how long is it going to take to get somewhere? Sometime, right? When did this happen? Some time ago. Like, it's very, and so that's very Nepali. And I was like, we have to keep that, even though to the reader they might wonder, like, I don't know exactly what, so it was very important.
It's like when you're reading books written by someone who's not from your culture, it's not about the explaining, isn't it? It's about being chucked in. You're immersed in their world, and you get to know. I lived in Tanzania for 10 months, and there were certain expressions, and when I got back to England, I started speaking like that. They're like, what are you talking about? Back to me. These different expressions you'd use, and I think that really adds to the authenticity of the book as well. Moving on to the illustrations, how did you decide, because I know you've got your lovely team of volunteers, how did you decide what illustrations were going to go with each story?
So I really left that up to my amazing volunteers. You know, I've learned over the last couple of years as the director of an organization that I am not good at everything, and nor should I be. I'm good at many things, but storytelling in this way is not one of them. And so I really trusted our illustrator, and mainly, and then illustrator worked with our storyteller and with our editors to really pick out the most important elements of the story, and then illustrated those. And so each story, except for one, has 2 illustrations. One is somewhere within that story that is a very kind of like pivotal time in that girl's life, or something really pivotal in the story. And then each story ends with a full page illustration of the girl. So you can see, and these are all based on, that is what Aizata looks like. Like, these are all based on, I sent all of the, photos of the girls to our illustrator, and then, she, and like, this all happened obviously when we were in lockdown. So she was in lockdown somewhere. Where was she? I can't even remember. She was in lockdown somewhere in the mountains, and she didn't have the stuff that she needed to draw. Wow. So she was just like painting and stuff. And then eventually she got to, because she's in Spain, so she got to the place where she had, the proper equipment, and then actually redid like Shree's illustration again, because that was the first one that she'd done, and kind of, and she's also new to she hasn't done a book illustration before, so she was really feeling out like her own technique in all this, and I think did a more than fantastic job of really showing the energy of each of the girls. Again,
she definitely did an amazing job, because usually we sort of start everything from scratch, and so I was tense about what's going to come through. And when I saw the designs and the illustrations, I was like, "Yep, this is fantastic." And it just fits the book beautifully, and I love the fact that it reflects the girls in it in terms of what they look like, so they can identify themselves. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah. And we wanted to be really colorful too, right? Because each of the girls come from very colorful countries, whether it's Haiti or India, or like they're very, so they are very, very sort of bright, colorful illustrations, which is important. So
how long did the process take from sort of getting the stories to actually getting to this point now?
Well, when did lockdown start?
I think lockdown started in March, but I know that you were doing crowdfunding for the book, but so I'm just trying to work out the time frame of getting all the stories as well.
So I think that basically, as soon as lockdown, I was, as the director of Global Girl, I have been up until July 1st working other jobs to pay myself something that I live on, right? And some money from Global Girl, and the rest has always been from other jobs. And so I was teaching capoeira at that time, which is Afro-Brazilian martial art, as well as working Global Girl Project. And so when lockdown happened and the schools were closed, then I was no longer teaching. And so at that point I was like, well, I've been begging and meditating and praying for more time to work on Global Girl Project full time. And here you go. And so the first thing I thought was like, what am I going to do with this time? And the book is something I've been thinking about for many years. And so right then was like, okay, then let's move forward with the book. Also because I knew we had all these other people in lockdown, all these people who'd been furloughed, all these people who had and then all of our girls who had in lockdown and not good situations, they didn't have internet and TV, and they didn't have, the right news, and there was a lot of uncertainty and so we wanted to engage them as well. And so I would say that we probably started the process in April. Mm-hmm. Lockdown started in March. We probably started in April, and it just got printed this week. So
I'm just trying to think when we started working together. So it was around May, June. It's all kind of blended into one. But I'm impressed with the fact that you've got the stories, because sometimes it can take a while and you translated them. So that was a really quick process.
Yeah, because you have to remember, we, as a grassroots organization, we work in partnership, but it's I know them all. It's me, right? We don't have to go through all these layers to get stuff done. So, you know, it was me messaging, you know, our partners in Nepal. You know, we talk on WhatsApp. I'm like, hey, I'm trying to, you know, do this book, and could you reach out to Devmaya and Shmriti? And you know, and Shmriti lives up in a small mountain village close to Mount Everest. So then he called, you know, somebody because her phone didn't really work, and then would arrange for her to walk like about an hour to a friend's house who had internet. And then, because I had to explain to her, I was like, do you want to write your story? And so and I couldn't even talk to her on Facebook Messenger because her internet was so bad. So we were like typing. I'm trying to like, I left voice messages, that didn't work. It wasn't strong enough. So we're like typing. And of course she doesn't speak English very well. So even though that was very challenging, I guess it did happen quickly because, you know, these are all people that I know and depended a lot on just the amazing energy of volunteers. And I also work really fast. I don't like, if I want something done, let's do it. Like, why are we waiting? What's the point of waiting? And it can drive some people crazy, but ultimately it is what is why Global Girl currently exists. Why there's a yeah. And our volunteers literally, like, as soon as like we would just, okay, you know, our storyteller Max was like, okay, listen, we've been trying to meet up with Aizata because Aizata's story, I'm like, it's not quite who she is, and let's, you know, and Aizata doesn't have a phone. She lives in a small village 5 hours outside of Freetown, Sierra Leone, right? And so she doesn't have any internet. And so there was this brief moment where she was online on her brother's phone on somebody's internet, and I'm like, Max, Aizata's on the internet. We need to talk to her now. And then she just would drop everything and like online and like, let's talk to her and ask her some more questions about her story. And
amazing. Yeah. So that's a massive message for everyone watching. Where there is a will, there is a way. Things get done. That's amazing. 100%. What's the most rewarding thing? I mean, yeah, what's the most rewarding thing about your job? It doesn't even sound like a job. I don't know what to call it.
My life's
work.
My life's I don't know. I mean, there's so many different parts. I mean, I think I know, I mean, there's many different things that are rewarding. First of all, is just being able to live my most authentic life, to be able to live the life that I know that I was, you know, I'm here to live. To know that I'm making a difference in the lives of other people. I definitely believe 100% that that's why we're all here. And so to know that I am somehow making a difference, even if it's a small difference, is really very important. And I think being a role model for my girls is really rewarding. It's not what I set out to do, but I think as I've seen over the years, realizing that I am a role model for them, especially in reading some of their stories, right? And we actually had to change parts, or not change, but kind of take parts out, because there was a lot about Global Girl, and thank you to Miss Julia. And I was like, this is not, I was like, we took my name out of it because I don't want, you know, but it is that, you know, that is really rewarding to know that I am a role model to them, and that hopefully they can see themselves in me, and I hold them up to a high level.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important, because there's a lot of our girls who live in situations where there's not as much expected of them. And, you know, just from the cultures that they live in, there's a limit to what's expected of them. And I sometimes am the first person they've met who has expected them to step up to the plate in a different way. And I think that's really important, because when we have that in our life, sometimes that's really what pushes us forward, that there's somebody there that expects it from you, you know, and expect it from you because they know you can do it.
Yeah.
That's really important. And it's just great. I mean, it's amazing. I love it. I don't know. It wasn't my plan to build Global Girl in this way, but it's, I mean, you know, it's crazy. It's amazing. It's exhausting. It's stressful, and it's all of those things at the same time. So
when you step into your purpose, it's like there isn't a plan. It organically flows and happens, doesn't it? I think there's something beautiful about, you say a small difference. I think you're making a huge difference, because even if you impact one girl, the fact that you hold them to account, you hold them to that expectation, they then in turn, they're becoming leaders in their community. So how many people are they then changing and having effect on?
Well, and Danni, that for Global Girl, that is essentially how we work, and what's most important is that it's you know, obviously it's like teaching. It's, you give somebody a fish or you teach them how to fish. It's you know, for our girls, it's my job is to teach them. Their job is to teach everybody else. And we know that it's much more effective for, you know, young people growing up in a village in Rwanda to learn from and see somebody from their own country and their own communities doing it, rather than somebody from the outside. And so it's really important that all it is our girls who are then creating that ripple effect and working with hundreds, you know, and you'll see through the, you know, through the projects, because we do highlight each of their projects at the end of the book. I mean, some of them, like Shmriti, when she did a play about caste discrimination, and she did it,
I was just about to ask. Yes.
Yeah, she did it to audiences of like 300 to 500 people in like villages up in the mountains of the wall. Like, that's crazy. I couldn't do that. That's her, you know. So it's pretty amazing.
That was about the caste system, wasn't it?
Yeah. Each of the girls choose an issue that is really important in their community, and again, it's not something that I choose. I'm, you know, from small town Ontario, Canada. So what do I know about life in Haiti or Sierra Leone? And so they each, in the process of our leadership training, choose a community issue that they want to address. And again, that's an important message for viewers. Is like, just find something that you're passionate about. Find something that it makes your belly rumble, and go after that. And so each of the girls chose, and so she chose caste discrimination, which is a really big issue in Nepal, especially in small villages, less so in Kathmandu, but in small villages, and also in India, you know, where if you are of a lower caste, you lead quite a different life. And so she explains a bit about that. And she's an artistic, dramatic girl who, I mean, this girl's crazy. She didn't even know it, but she created her own micro lending business. She didn't even know before she met me.
I love that.
Yeah, she would enter competitions, like singing competitions, speaking competitions, and she'd win money, and then she would put it in a bank account. And then she realized that people in her village needed money to like buy goats and so she would lend the money out and then charge them a little bit of interest. And then she used that interest to pay her school fees.
Wow.
I mean, that's crazy. And so she created this play, and she brought young people of different castes together, which is very unusual for different castes to spend time together. And they wrote a play, and then they gave this play in different villages and sort of up in the mountains in Nepal, and talking about an issue that is often not discussed, and got the support of the chief of the village and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, she had audiences of like 300 to 500 people.
That is so inspirational, taking something that's personal to you, that you experience in your own culture, and then blending it all together. That's just amazing. As the subtitle says, changing our world starts with a girl. You answered my next question, was just to give us a little bit of insight into one of the girls, but that was amazing. I want to read this book again, actually. So please, it is on Amazon and all good retailers, Foyles, Barnes and Noble. It's everywhere. Just Google More Than One Voice, Changing Our World Starts with a Girl, Global Girl Project. We'll put the links in the comments as well as to Julia's website, Global Girl Project, in the comments. Oh, I could talk to you for ages. I feel like I want to hear one more story, but I think we should leave it for people to actually buy the book.
Okay, I can tell another story, but yeah, we can leave it. Leave it for people. Buy the book. It is directed to young adults only, in that we work with young adults, and we want them to impact their peers. However, every adult who has read it has enjoyed it just as much. I had one of my board members had read like the first story, and she called me in tears saying, "Oh my God, I love this, is so good." So, you know, it's really for everybody. Buy it for, you know, for the young people in your life, buy it for the adults. And also remember that this is a fundraiser for us. This is in a time of COVID where charities are really suffering, because what's happening is that a lot of foundations and grant makers are choosing to focus all of their money on COVID related issues, which is, in my mind, short-sighted, because once COVID's over, you can't lose all of the charities that are doing amazing work, right? And so we are all looking for other ways to raise money. And so this is for us also a fundraiser, but it is for our girls who are impacted much worse off than you or I, because they live in countries that there's no furlough scheme. There's nothing, right? And their families all live from one day to the next and are suffering considerably. And so we want to be able to create some economic independence for them too. So
thank you.
I'll buy the book, baby.
Apart from buying the book, please do buy the book. Don't just buy one, buy two, buy three.
Yes.
Fantastic as gifts. Christmas is coming up. Somebody needs to read this book. Also, and people have a lot more time now. Also, most people. Also, I completely forgot my question now to. Oh yeah, how else can people assist the Global Girl Project?
Many different ways. You can become a monthly donor. As I said, we don't have currently government grants or foundation grants, and so we rely solely on community fundraising. So sustainable money coming every month is a huge way that we create impact. And so becoming a monthly donor is really important. We have an event coming up on November 14th, our first ever global summit called Connected Voices, and you're going to actually hear from at least one of the girls. And we are launching our audiobook on that day. So we have somebody named Deepti Gupta who is donating her time pro bono to create an audiobook of this book.
Amazing.
Yeah, and so we're going to launch it. So November 14th, so buy tickets for that. Is a huge tour. And, you know, we do rely, this book is a product of highly skilled volunteers who are passionate about what we're doing. So we always encourage people to reach out and tell us what you love to do, what you're passionate about, and we often find a way to have you help. We have, you know, we created an impact report from volunteers. We've, you know, obviously, as I said, we've had the book, we're doing this event, it's all run by volunteers. So, you know, and if all you want to do is follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, go for it. You can also sign up for our newsletter, so you can at least, you know, follow what we're doing. And we
so many ways. We can all do at least two of those things. So Julia will put all the information about the book and everything you've just said into the comments. And please do connect with Julia. I was going to say, how can people connect with you? But we were just giving you a social media handles. I want to know, before you go, going back to you, what would be that, knowing what you know now and, you know, doing what you've done, and knowing that there's going to be so much more, what is that one piece of advice you would give to your 10-year-old self?
10-year-old self. Looking at my dog for that one. Helping me at all? No. I think just that it's all going to be okay. You know, that ultimately, if you just follow what's in front of you and you do what you know is right for yourself, it will all be okay, you know? And so I think that that's important for each of us right now, especially when we're kind of, a lot of us are feeling a little lost, you know, things have changed, jobs have changed. There's so much that has changed. It's just like, there's so much we can't control. And so just focus on what you can control, which is what's right in front of you. And I think if I had kind of known that when I was, well, that's a lot to know when you're 10, but you know, that's it. Just follow what's in front of you and know that you ultimately, you will be okay. Everything will work out. It may not work out as you thought it would work out, but it will work out. And that's really, important. And the only other thing I'd say is my favorite quote is relax, nothing is under control.
I love that. You know what? I'm actually going to write on a post-it note and stick it right here. I love that. Relax, nothing is under control.
Nothing is under control.
I love that. I needed to hear that. Great.
It helps me a lot. You're like, oh, okay, or there's nothing for me to do then. Nothing's
exactly. And then you just get back in flow and you do amazing things like set up Global Girl Project and publish more than one voice. Will there be another book coming out, do you think?
Ooh,
that on you,
yeah, of course. I mean, our goal, I think, as I don't know, I sort of alluded to this, but like our goal is that ultimately that we would find a publisher who would want us to pay us to be able to translate this into the languages where our girls live, right? So we want to get this translated into Arabic, into Swahili, into Hindi, right? We want, and obviously, simpler, yes, Spanish and French, but like we want to get this into the hands of girls who do not see them represented in literature, right? And that's a big part of what you do, and that's really ultimately where this book started, is that our girls are not represented in literature and they need to be. And so they're representing themselves. And so we want to get it into the hands of those girls. We want to get it into libraries in those countries, into schools in those countries. So that does mean other editions that will be in different languages. But I do also, I think that we obviously, this is just 8 girls, right? We've worked with many more girls who have other crazy stories, and maybe eventually I'll write my own book. We'll see what happens. I don't know.
Watch this space. Thank you so much, Julie. You have been absolutely amazing. Thank you. Please do go out. This is out on International Day of the Girl on the 11th of October. More than one voice, but you can get it at the moment on pre-order. Hey! Awesome, I love it. I have it here, just my computer stood up. It's lovely. Please join us next Wednesday, 7 p.m. GMT, 2 p.m. EST, where I'll be interviewing the awesome and amazing Perry Belsa, who released a book with us nearly a year ago, 20s and Happy. Looking forward to speaking with her. I will see you next week. Thank you so much for tuning in. I've been Danielle Blechner speaking to
Julia.
See you next week. Bye.